We're going to get started in just another minute. It's 12 noon, and I would like to welcome everyone to our webinar, Overview of the National Resource Conservation Services Stewardship Evaluation Tool with Erin Lauster. I'm Kim Rush-Lynch, Ag Marketing Specialist with University of Maryland Extension in Prince George's County, and I will be helping to facilitate the session today. Throughout the presentation, we will be using the chat pod in the lower right corner for questions. Please use the arrow key to select everyone or all attendees and type your question in, and the presenter will be able to answer your question as soon as they are able. Before we begin, I would like to take a moment to thank our sponsors and collaborators that are listed on the right-hand of this slide, the right-hand side of the slide, and remind you of our upcoming webinars. Next up, we have Soil Maps for Production Agriculture, and then on the 26th of September, we have Farm Record Keeping. As a reminder, our presentation will be recorded today. An email will be sent directly to you with the link to the archived presentation and any materials presented. Please feel free to share this email with your colleagues. Our complete collection of archived webinars can be found on our website at the address listed in blue. And now I'm going to turn the presentation over to Erin, who will tell you a little bit more about himself as well as this wonderful resource stewardship tool. Thank you, Erin, for presenting today.
Thank you, Kim, and thank everybody for attending today. I will just confirm that I am displaying everything right. So my name is Erin Lauster. I'm NRCS's National Sustainable Ag Lead, and we've been working on what I'll call our Resource Stewardship Evaluation Tool for really about 4 years now. And sort of what started this was we were getting a need from our clients, the farmers out there, that they have a high demand for the resource information or environmental metrics from their farm. And obviously NRCS's goals really since the 1930s has been to help farmers improve their conservation on their site. And as part of that, we develop a conservation plan and collect a lot of information about farmers on site. So what we wanted to do was how can we provide more service to our customers by helping them provide that information in a way that they can understand it easier, but also be able to use that information if they need to fill out some of these other needs for environmental information, as well as then as they're working through different programs offered by cities and states and counties, what programs do we have that can help them improve their conservation and meet their goals. So what I want to talk about today is that Resource Stewardship Evaluation Tool. And so I know you guys explained how questions will work, so I will try to answer your questions to the best of my ability. I know we also have some local NRCS folks on that if I can't answer them, hopefully they can. So to get started, there we go. Really, what is the Resource Stewardship Evaluation? And it's a voluntary service that we provide to producers and landowners, and it's a part of that conservation planning process. So this is not mandated. We don't require this, but really we want to make sure that this is your product. If you're interested in working on these topics, then we want to help you with working on that. So what it does is it evaluates your current conservation and management practices and compares that against what we call our stewardship thresholds. And so really we look at different evaluations methods to achieve that evaluation, and what the tool does is it pulls that together and hopefully gives you a result that you can quickly evaluate and be able to share with others as may be appropriate. Now I say share with others, as I noticed that you can share with others. For NRCS purposes, if you get an evaluation, it is your product. We do not share that information with anyone else. It's protected by law, and we take that very seriously. So this is just between us and you, and any information that you get, you can use as appropriate to what you're doing. But we will not share that without your permission. So what are our objectives? Well, the first was we wanted to improve our customer service to you as the farmers and ranchers that are out there. And so what we've done is we've developed this framework for stewardship recognition. And so what that comes down to is too often we talk about the problems that are going on out there in the farm, and we're not talking enough about the good things that are going on out in the farm. So besides identifying areas where we can do improvements, we also identify in the tool areas that folks are doing really well. And so we want to be able to help promote that farmers really are making the difference in the environment and we need to tell that story more often. So what we've worked with is a number of folks that are looking for stewardship recognition methods, whether that's a certification or a recognition in some type, award program, other things like that, and I'll talk about some of that later. We also want to support those sustainability metrics that we know a lot of folks are selling to your buyers, whether be that direct to customers or the Walmarts of the world or various integrators, that they're starting to demand sustainability metrics be submitted with the produce. So if we can help you get that information in a way that you can use that for your marketing, we want to help you and assist you doing that, because we've probably already collected a lot of that. We want to make sure that that's usable for you in a way that you can use. So then the last part is basically we want to assist in making better decisions. And so, obviously the more information that we can give you in a way that is understandable, we want to make, everyone will make better decisions. So how can we do that most effectively? On the flip side of that, there are a number of tools, probably over 100 that NRCS uses. And then when you look at all the other environmental organizations out there, there's probably thousands of different tools and platforms that people evaluate environmental information. So if we can kind of integrate those together, ask the questions once, and then give that information out and have it run various tools, we're going to make both our lives a lot easier. And then we also know that folks that work with us typically are looking for financial assistance to make improvements to their conservation. So we want to be able to make that process more efficient as well by providing the information we've already collected to our ranking process so that we can expedite that and make everyone's life a little simpler. So if you've heard anything about resource stewardship, this is what you probably are visualizing at this point, which is these are our major resource concern areas that NRCS works with most of our clients on. So you look at that, the bolded areas in soil management, water quality, pesticide management, water quantity, air quality, and habitat health. And so within that, then we look at the bars here. So the darker bars are those high level, the ones I listed. And the blue line that goes down there is what I mentioned earlier is our stewardship threshold. So your goal is really to get to the right side of the blue line if you are looking to achieve our stewardship threshold that's out there. So you can see then with the sub underneath all of those darker bars are lighter bars that break down those things. So soil management's a pretty big topic. So we break it down into our water erosion, wind erosion, and soil carbon. Water quality, we've broken down pretty small, but that's because we have a lot of interest in improving folks' water quality out there right now. But we look at sediment, phosphorus delivery, both surface and subsurface. We look at pesticide management, how is that moving through the environment? We want to look at water quantity issues with irrigation. For air quality, we're really looking at soil carbon and nitrous oxide to the air and its effects. And then for habitat health, we look at both that terrestrial habitat for like sage grouse or a deer or other things like that. And we also split that up if you have aquatic resources like a stream or a wetland going through there, how is the aquatic habitat on the site? So the solid bars then represent your current condition on your site. So if we had just come out to your farm and did the evaluation, you get that solid bar. That shows where you're at. So in this one you can see that while for erosion the site was doing really well, for soil carbon, they were a little behind. So they were probably releasing more carbon into the air than they were maintaining into their soils. And what we really want to do is build that soil carbon within those soils. So there was an area for an opportunity there. So you can see then the hashed marks are really then after we've done that basic plan, we then start assessing, well, what kind of things can we change about the operation? Are there conservation practices we can implement? Are there different tillage methods we might want to use? Or in this case, we look at adding a cover crop during the winter, which is going to add that growing vegetation that then is going to put more carbon back into the soils there. So when we added that cover crop, that's going to change that bar. And you can see there that took it clearly past the blue line, and it shows what the effects of adding that practice would be. Same thing with the water quality there. Again, we use the same practice. In this case, with a cover crop, but it's going to take up those excess nutrients that were hanging around in the soils or on the surface that may be washed off or leached down through the surface. So adding that crop that's growing longer during the growing season of that cover crop is going to help bind those in. And it also has some effect on pesticides. Now this site obviously already did a great job with their pesticide management, so the effect of that was minor by comparison, but we do document that we are improving it even past what is an already really excellent system. Now for irrigation in this case, they don't currently do irrigation. We talked about whether there would be an irrigation need on the site because they were having some droughty conditions, and we could show in the plan what a good irrigation management plan on that site could achieve, which is why you look at the hashed marks there on where they could be moving to. Air quality, similarly, we talked about the soil carbon that they're releasing it now with their tillage system, and by adding that cover crop to that system, again, it's going to add more carbon back into the system, as you can see there. The last one being habitat health. With just adding that cover crop, we do document, even though it wasn't their primary purpose to add it for habitat, that does provide additional habitat for a lot of species during those winter months, so that can have positive habitat benefits, and so that we document that there. So what you can see in this situation was basically a farm that's doing reasonably well, had a couple of opportunities for improvement, and through adding a conservation practice, we can show how that improvement is going to play out against all of the different resources that those affect. And what the system does is it looks at the multiple. So if they're doing cover crop and maybe no-till and filter strips, then it could be a whole system. It may not be one practice, but it would also show these types of benefits that you can use. So our goal is hopefully this provides the client with information to look at. Well, we can look at alternatives. So say we don't want to do cover crop, but we want to look at another, changing to a no-till system. What effect would that have on the system? And we can show those alternatives to then help you make a decision for what's going to be right for the environment on your site, but also what's going to be right with your management system. So let's look at a couple of examples of that. How do we utilize resource stewardship? And so if you didn't know, the founder of NRCS back in the 30s was a man named Hugh Hammond Bennett. So you can never have too many Hugh Hammond Bennett quotes. But of course, as women in agriculture, that as we take care of that land, it's going to take care of us. So, but I know you all need more quotes, so here they are. So I talked about then how we utilize this, and stewardship recognition being a high priority for us. How do we tell that good story? How do we help farmers tell that good story? In this example, we have a Maryland farm. They're doing pumpkins and corn and soybeans and wheat, and you can see in the picture there, they're really a you-pick type of operation during the fall months for pumpkins. You can see the corn maze in the background there. So really they're having folks on their farm almost 365 days a year. So stewardship is very important to them, and that they're portraying a good stewardship message and demonstrating that commitment on their farm. So when we went out to do the evaluation, we expected them to do fairly well. And as you can see in their evaluation here, they did fairly well. Really every item that we looked at was crossing the bars. Their soil health, their organic matter management was doing really well. Their nutrient management was doing really well. They had a good plan in place. They had good pesticide control. They don't irrigate, so we gave them a pass. This was an early one, and so those are the things that we're wanting feedback on. Is it helpful for us to mark a non-irrigation as a pass, or just line that item out? So this is our things that we've developed over time, and certainly we are still seeking feedback as folks, how can we improve this product and make it even better for you? But as you can see, overall, very high conservation on this site. These are the types of sites that we want to look at stewardship recognition programs, and Maryland is passed the stewardship recognition program in their law. They haven't completely got it up and running yet, but this is something that they're looking for in the future. So we're hoping that with this information, this farmer can easily get into that program, achieve that recognition, and be able to show and demonstrate to others in a technically sound way that, not only do they look like they are doing a good job, but they really are doing a great job out there, and these are folks that we need to recognize. So this site was another example in Delaware, and we really want to talk about how can we improve that communication in our conservation planning process. And so this is basically a no-till corn and soybean site. The map on the right might look sort of familiar with the bars on the right-hand side there, because it was an early example of what we used in that previous graph where I showed the bars. And really the site doing no-till, doing a good job, but because of the sites, how much rainfall they get, it's a very sandy site pushing things through the soil. They really could improve their soil carbon that much more. So this is one where we did look at cover crops and adding that to the farm. And you can see what the effects of that was. The one interesting thing was the person that asked us to do this was the landowner, and he rents out the farm, so he's not farming it himself. When we talked about adding a cover crop, his big concern was, how does he talk to his farmer about that? Would the farmer be receptive to that? So we had him, called the farmer over the day we were out there, and we talked about that and let the farmer really take the lead in explaining what we had shown him in the chart here. And what he said, was showed that, his reason he wanted the farmer to consider adding cover crops was that, he wanted to get these additional environmental benefits. And the amusing thing for us was the farmer said, well, he does cover crops on all of his property. He just doesn't do it on the properties he rents to. And he had the same problem, is he didn't know how to talk to the landowners that he rents from on the benefits of adding cover crops, although he knew them himself for his own operation. So what we found was really this lack of communication on the benefits of some of these activities really was a two-way street. How did the farmers talk to their landowners, who now own about 50% of the ground being farmed, and how does the landowner talk to their farmer when they may be the more progressive person looking to improve that operation for their, for their future generations. So it was a really good tool for them to work on that communication, quickly showed the benefits they were hoping to achieve. We really found it an effective communication spot out there. So pretty excited by that. So the next example was a New Jersey farm. And so you can see in the picture, the background one is the initial condition out there. And that's not what we normally like to see. But it was a corn and soybean operation, obviously not no-till, had a fair amount of gullying going on. But this was a situation that the ground is owned by the canal districts in New Jersey. And they were concerned by the picture, just like we would be. And they said, that's really not achieving the goals that we want to achieve as a landowner there for the canal districts, certainly water quality being one of their primary concerns. Well, so the farmer came into us and said, well, can you help me? I really need this land to keep my farm productive and have enough to support my family. So what can we do? And how can I go back to the canal district and say, please don't pull my lease, I can change? So we looked at the site, and you can see by the bars there, they were pulling up pretty short. They really could, lots of opportunities for improvement. So what we said looking at this was, okay, well, let's look at some alternatives. And so we used the tool then to evaluate various alternatives. And one of those would have been going to a no-till type of system, like we talked about before, and that certainly could have helped them achieve closer to those bars, if not past the bars. But then we also looked at not a grazing system, but a haying system there. And what we found was, because the farmers, in New Jersey, a lot of smaller operations, and their ground is pretty spread out, he didn't have access to no-tilling equipment. It would have been a big cost for him to bring that on. So that really wasn't financially feasible, which, while the environmental part is obviously what we're focused on here, we've got to make sure that whatever system we work on with you really meets the needs and the resources that you might have. So in this case, that wasn't going to work. So then we looked at this haying system, and he had haying equipment. So we looked at, well, if we did hay out here, could we meet the requirements? As you can see, then that's what we modeled here in the bar graph. That was a hay system that certainly met all of those requirements and more. So he himself went back to the canal district and said, I can meet the goals that you have. I can meet your water quality goals. I can actually improve your habitat, which is an important issue for you all as well. But I need to switch to a hay system. The problem with that is, on a year-to-year lease, I can't make money on a hay system when I know that a 5-year hay crop might get pulled any time in that 5 years. So if you can give me a 5-year lease, I can meet your objectives out here, and everybody can be happy. And so for the first time ever, the canal district there agreed. And so it was the first time they'd ever given more than a 1-year lease to a farming operation, but they could see the benefits of this clearly, could work with the farmer on his needs there, and really find out a nice win-win situation for everybody involved. So we thought the communication was important, but really in this case, it also empowered the producer to really be able to use that information with the people he works with to help them understand what he can achieve out on that site. So we were really happy to see that go on. The last thing here to talk about is, how do we talk about conservation on the broader scale? So some of you maybe on the canal your conservation districts are working on larger watershed type level scales as well. And that's one of the things we've had a hard time talking about, what the benefits of conservation are. So in this case, we did a pilot in Iowa, and we really looked at where they were at currently in a small watershed, where they get moved to with using our usual conservation practices and our normal planning process, and where we can move people to if they all achieve that blue line level. So you can see in what is probably brown on your screen, although I've found that sometimes these things change colors on me as they go. But so the first bar, the highest bar, was our benchmark condition for a lot of these sites. And so, you know, they had nitrogen losses, they had soil carbon losses, sediment, and phosphorus. In our normal conservation planning process, we had done the National Water Quality Initiative out here. So we actually did the evaluation right after they had signed those contracts. And we looked at those, you could see pretty significant reductions, which showed us that, you know, the great thing, which is voluntary conservation can make great differences in the environment, and that farmers were willing to come in and with assistance, you know, implement those. So you can see, you know, 40, 60% reductions, 70% sediment, 40% phosphorus, you know, really great reductions. But what we saw then was if we take that next step and get people to move towards that blue line or past that blue line, there's still more we can even achieve past that with additional conservation. And so that's the green, what's green on mine to the right-hand side, the smaller bars, you know, where we can move people to after that, you know, moving to advanced conservation. We can also then talk about with the tool, I know you notice in the bar chart we didn't list the numbers, but at the watershed scale we can pull out the average tons saved, average nitrogen reductions improved, and phosphorus, and then the average soil carbon savings. So we can help, you know, provide that information to those watershed planners to show that, you know, this voluntary conservation and farmer conservation can really make a difference in those environments and achieve those goals that we want to see. So before I move on to partnership, the little questions don't pop up on my screen, so I didn't know, Kim, if there's any questions out there at this point. Okay. Hearing none. Sorry, Kim, is that you?
Oh, sorry. I thought I had it on. I think my mute messed up there. I was just saying we don't have any questions at this point, but if folks do have questions throughout the presentation, please remember to use the chat pod in your lower right-hand corner.
Great. So again, everyone needs Hugh Hammond Bennett quotes, but it's a longer one. I'll let you read it on your own. But we really, you know, the power of conservation, you know, really gets to that next level is how can we use this in partnership. So I wanted to talk about some of those partnerships we have. The first thing that we talked about is we wanted to give you the power to use your own information with the partners that you're working with now. And part of that has been we've met with a number of different organizations and talked about how do we harmonize our different metrics so that farmers aren't required to send out. I talked to one farmer that had 8 different surveys that they had to answer for the different people they sold to. Can we bring those together? Can we provide them with information that through you that helps address their needs so you're not having to do all that? And the big thing we've worked on is we're creating the easy button, which we've just are rolling out here in August, which is if you have data in a management software, you can send it to the Resource Stewardship Tool, or vice versa, if you want the data that we have in the Resource Stewardship Tool to use in your management software, we can send that to you. So we've now got that capability just rolling out here in August. It's brand new, but we hope that gives you closer to the easy button and helps that sharing of data. Now again, we take user privacy very seriously, so we will not share your data with anyone but you. But if you need to, we make that available for you because it really is your data, and we want to make sure that you have control of that and can use that appropriately to make your life simpler. So, and really I think that's, you know, how do we tell that conservation story together? Some of the partners that we're working with on this too, you know, look at, you know, using this data we can show farmers are doing a good job. Farmers are protecting the environment and you know, basically, you know, are good stewards of their land. And so I think this makes it really powerful for all of us to tell that story. But we want to make sure that we're interoperable with any of those systems and are really excited to roll out that new feature. The other one is some of the potential partners, and as I said, we're working with a number of folks on the data interoperability, but we've also been working with retailers and processors and a lot of the like the corn organization and soybean and different commodity organizations, and a lot of the agribusiness folks, whether that's your CCAs or your equipment dealers, and how do we make sure that that data is interoperable, but also we look at recognition programs. How can they recognize good stewardship when they see it? Also, the commodity groups, the NGOs that are out there, universities have been testing this system for us, Well, what we want to do is make sure everybody can get on the same page, that we're all there to support farmers through this stewardship journey. And that's what we're seeing, and we've been working with through the resource stewardship, is we've been working with over 30 partners on bringing folks together on how we can make this a success for the farmers. So one of the great examples of that is the National Association of Conservation District Trailblazer programs. And so what that does is it takes farmers and who are early adopters of the resource stewardship. So at this point, we're not looking that everyone has to achieve the blue line, but what we want to do is give people that recognition of who have gone ahead and benchmarked their operation so that they know where their opportunities are for improvement or things that they're doing really well. And so this is one of the farmers that we worked with through the NACD soil health program. And so looking at her operation, as you would expect, she came out doing really well on soil health. And so it was really a good way for us to validate the efforts that she's done on her operation. But then also we found a couple of spots where, I think it was habitat health, where she had some opportunities that, there were some additional changes that she could make to improve that habitat on that operation. So it was a really win-win there, helping her, but also recognizing all the good work that she's also done. So with the Trailblazer program, we give them a letter of recognition. It's signed by the local NRCS staff, but also by the local conservation district. And as we look at awards in the future, the Hugh Hammond Bennett Award by NACD and other recognition events, they're starting to look for these types of ways to validate that farmers are doing a good job. And so we have done evaluations at the national winner for the Hugh Hammond Bennett Award last year, and have seen this program starting to build momentum. With that, we've also looked at other stewardship recognition programs. You may be familiar with Field to Market. Their objective to help integrators as they go up the supply chain, pull that environmental information for farmers, and help tell that good environmental story for farmers as they move forward, and also look at opportunities for continual improvement. The other really exciting one that we've had is in Vermont, where they've actually taken their state program for recognition of good farmers, and they're using our evaluation as their basis for not only benchmarking, but then marking their progress towards meeting the program goals. And that gives them, they're under the gun for the not Chesapeake Bay, obviously that's more of the Mid-Atlantic folks, but for Lake Champlain up there, which they're looking at implementing a TMDL on. And so folks that have met the Vermont Environmental Stewardship Program through the Resource Stewardship Tool have assurity that they don't have to make changes for 10 years, that they're already achieving a high level of stewardship. So it really gives them that right to farm support from Vermont, and also recognition, so they can use that Vermont seal in their marketing and sales efforts as well. So really exciting opportunity there that we have had a lot of conversation with other states about repeating that type of program. So I guess that probably brings you to the question of, hopefully I've created some interest in the resource stewardship evaluation and how you get one. So obviously we have offices across the nation, and you can go to your local, the USDA site there to find a local service center if you're not already working with them. I will say this is a newer service that we are offering, so we're still out there training all of our staff. So the person in the field office, and they may not be trained yet, but there is people in every state that is trained, so we can get you the service. If it's not immediate, we'll get you there, and we're reaching out and training more people every day. So that's how you would go forward with requesting an evaluation there. And so with that, I think, want to thank everybody for listening in today, and really open it up for if you have questions about the resource stewardship or NRCS in general and what we can do to help.
Thank you, Aaron. So much good information. We do have one question from Corrine. She said she may have missed this, but when was the tool developed, and what is the plan for rolling it out? She's in Wisconsin, and she was wondering if it's being used in Wisconsin already.
Sure. So we have used it in Wisconsin and have a number of folks up there. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but we rolled the tool out in various land uses. So we developed the crop land use first, which we rolled out really 3 years ago, and so it's been piloted for that. We rolled out range and grazing the year after that, and then this last year we rolled out the farmstead and forestry as well. So at this point we have all of the different land uses that are out there are available. Obviously, the forestry and farmsteads are newest, so we still would consider that in more of a pilot stage. So we're looking for comment back from farmers that use it. But certainly we're interested in comment back from any farmer that uses it, because we always are looking to improve our product. But basically, it's been implemented. It's available. Now, right now, the tool itself is only accessible by the NRCS staff that use it. So they're going to come out to your site. And if you're not familiar with NRCS, we provide you with that technical assistance for free. It's not a charged service. But we would come out to your site and use it with you. We are looking at, in the future, developing one that farmers can go in themselves and start to enter their information. They'll probably still want our folks to come out and help explain some of the conservation practices, as not everybody knows all of our 150 practices and how they apply to your farm. But it would provide you ability to go in and start to set your farm up in the tool.
Thank you for answering that. Do we have any other questions for Aaron? I'll give people just a few more moments to type. We're getting a thank you from Doris Banky.
I do want to say, I'm the national coordinator for this, so I guess I didn't put my email up on the screen, but my email is Aaron, aaron.lauster, Lauster, @wdc.usda.gov. So if you've got questions or want to talk about the broader program goals, I probably won't personally come out to your farm, but I certainly can help connect you to the folks that would, and certainly interested in talking about any opportunities out there that we can further the goals with this or help you on your operation.
That's awesome, Aaron. And do you have any website links you'd like to share with us? I might be able to type them into the chat box.
We do have a resource stewardship website. I should know that off the top of my head, but I'm going to look at Brianna Barlow, who's also with NRCS and is on the chat, and hope that she typed in the site login to the text.
Thank you. Sorry to spring that on you. And while she's taking care of that, does anyone else have any questions for Aaron? Lots of great information today. And, I just want to go ahead and let folks know that at the conclusion of this, you will receive, an email probably within the week that will include a link to the recording and if there's any additional resources that Aaron would like to share with you. So be on the lookout for that. And we can also share the links to the website as well. Because for some reason I'm not seeing in the chat box.
It looks like we have a question. How do you measure air quality, and for habitat health, how is it evaluated for use of tools?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one more time? I was having a hard time hearing that one.
How do you measure air quality, and for habitat health, how is it evaluated using the pre-use tool?
Sure. So the way we look at air quality really looks at a number of factors that go into what your rotation is and how. So air quality is broken down into two primary indicators. Obviously, there's a lot more indicators within the overall air quality, but one is the soil carbon. And so for that, we're looking at what's your rotation, what's your soil type, what's your climatic zone, and how those three things really interact. And then you may have additional conservation practices that are going on to affect your soil carbon, especially like cover crop and things like that. So really the system pulls all of those together. What we do is a quick analysis in the tool, but it's based on years of work that we've done with what we call our Conservation Environmental Assessment Project, or SEEP. And that uses a number of different environmental tools. APEX, if you really geek out about these things, is the primary one that we've used to evaluate that over time. So that looks at our soil carbon, and then the soil nitrogen, we really use those same factors, but then we add in what is your nutrient management that affects that, and how you're applying your nutrients. So those are the primary factors that go into the assessment that is run on your, and primarily look at your soils, so your soil types behind the scenes there for how it pulls that information. For habitat, it varies. So what we have in the tool are a number of what we call our wildlife habitat guides. And so the guides, we have both land use type guides that look at a broader habitat evaluation, but also some species specific guides. So if you're managing for a certain species, we can pull up a guide for that one that will assess your habitat. An example of that might be in the West, sage grouse, and trying to help the recovery of that so it's not a listed species is an important priority. So you can pull up a sage grouse guide on your range management. Here in the East, one of the aquatic guides that we have would be the bog turtle. So if you've got a more marshy area, we can pull up a bog turtle guide and it'll assess your site of, are you providing, is there habitat for that bog turtle? Or again, on a general, more field basis, if you're looking at a site, we would just pull up a crops site that really looks at, are you providing food during those off seasons for migratory animals, or shelter during the winter times for those with residue left on the farm or something like that. So it's not a one-size-fits-all, because obviously we know your goals for wildlife may wildly differ, and obviously the wildlife we're affecting might wildly differ. So you would pull up an appropriate guide that, where you're working with your planner, you would talk about what would be your objective, that they would use that guide on your site to evaluate.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Aaron. I just wanted to let you know that Brianna has shared with me the resource website as well as Aaron's email address, so you can check that out in the chat box. I just want to make sure there are no more questions, and if there are, again, please feel free to use the chat box feature, and we'll hang out for a little bit longer to see if any questions arise.
And if you have one that occurs to you tonight, feel free to send me an email and I'll be happy to get back with you.
We appreciate that, Aaron. Cece, do you have any additional questions on your side?
Looks like nobody's posted any more questions.
Okay. Well, I think with that, we could probably go ahead and end today's webinar. And again, if anyone has follow-up questions, please feel free to email Aaron, and be on the lookout for an email in your inbox with the recording from this webinar. And we look forward to seeing you guys next time for our upcoming webinar on farm record keeping.
Thank you, Kim, and thanks for all the people that called in.
Thank you, Aaron, and we thank your staff for taking the time to share this really important information with us.